Well, hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are listening to the Talks podcast. Listen, I'm tongue tied because this is an exciting day. We have one of the most prominent Black women in Arizona. Now, she's probably going to smile and say that's not so, but that's really so. She's really a big deal. And we got a lot of tea to spill, and it is about bettering yourself. Um, she speaks to the face of transformative leadership, and everybody knows that I'm really big on when it's time to go in that cocoon and coming out as a butterfly. You're now operating in another space. No more caterpillar action going on. So we are super excited today. I'm going to just read something quickly on her and then let her introduce herself to us. And when I say you're in for a treat. We're going to kick off 2025 with, as Travis Hunter said, foot on the gas, and we are here with it. Teniqua Broughton, a celebrated speaker and influential leader in the nonprofit sector, is now proud to announce her new book, My Leader, Myself. Now, I'm going to stop right there because I'm going to slide you on over as to what that means. Who wrote the book? We're going to move over. So, because y'all know y'all like to write a book in 2 weeks off a Facebook post. So we're going to go ahead and go there. We're going there. We're going to kick it off. We're going to go there today. Because knew us for real. So we're going to go there today. Teniqua Broughton brings over 20 years. That means 2 decades, folks. 20 years of experience in the nonprofit sector, leveraging public speaking and workshops to drive nonprofit governance, leadership, empowerment, and equity capacity. In 2014, not yesterday, folks, she founded Verve Simone Consulting to channel her passion for arts, culture, women, and underrepresented communities. Her leadership spans nonprofit formation and capacity building with partnerships including the State of Black Arizona, Arizona Impact for Good, and Arizona Opera Loud. She has led statewide leadership groups in developing a shared racial justice curriculum and spearheaded equity readiness coaching. Ooh, I'm so excited, y'all. I know y'all see this face. You can probably barely see my eyes because y'all know when I smile, it's from ear to ear. So if you're listening, just paint a picture and then you can slide on over to YouTube and see it for real, for real. So today, without further ado, we bring to you the one and only Teniqua Broughton. Teniqua, welcome to the Stiletto Talks podcast. Please share with us a little bit about yourself before we get into this awesome interview. I'm excited.
First of all, Paulette, thank you. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to be on your podcast and be able to share who I am and the work that I am set to do in the community. I think the most important thing that I think people should know about me is you can see my long resume and all of the different accolades, but I just try to be a woman of my word. I try to do exactly what I say that I'm going to do, and I have conviction for the things that I am assigned to do. And that's the biggest thing. And the people who know me and who know me closely know I have a big heart to be able to support, but please don't get it twisted that my kindness is definitely not my weakness. So I think that's who I am. And I've always been a leader since a young child, and an entrepreneur in multiple ways, seeing my mother be an interior decorator. And so who I am and the words that I share today are the lessons, the experiences of what I have seen and experienced, as well as what I've learned by interacting and working with others. So I just always hope that I can impact others by sharing my stories and my experiences so that you can be the light for others in the same way.
So glad to have you. I mean, just this is great. I believe that, and if you've ever been to a Stiletto Talks event, we talk a lot about this. A lot of times we have good intentions, but sometimes the follow through is not always there. And we all know this is a transformative time in the country. And so many of us are trying to see what next. What are we to do next? This is a reflective time when we're recording this. which is in December. And so we're thinking about this time of year, like how can we get better? And then of course, when you all are hearing it, obviously it's going to be January. And so you think about how can I put what I'm thinking into action? And sometimes that's more difficult than you think. You can look at a post on social media and say, hey, this is something, this is me. I align with this and I'm off and going. And you know, I have talked about this many times with many guests that 2 weeks in is not enough, folks. We got to put in a little more work, have a little more skin in the game. And something Teniqua mentioned was things that she has conviction for. And so as you listen to our conversation, think about what are you convicted to do? Because conviction is what causes change. When you're convicted of something, you change because it's on your mind and you know at that moment that that is who you are, that is where you stand, and you will not be easily swayed when you understand what you're convicted to do. So, Teniqua, you have written this book, and I want to talk with you, put your author hat on right now because you wear many hats. So, author's hat. So, based on your background, because you are in that nonprofit sector, you deal with a lot of professionals on multiple levels, in the private sector and in the nonprofit sector. Tell us what prompted you or inspired you to write a book about professional development.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Paula. So, I didn't write my book in 2 weeks. I actually accumulated stories over the course of my career that I was writing down that I could never really find maybe I want to say an experience in another leadership book, or an experience where I was like, yeah, there's really not a book for that. So I was accumulating in a journal. So every start of the year, my mother gives me a brand new journal. That's her thing for me. And it's my way to write. I like to say I'm like a mad scientist. I have ideas out of the wazoo, all of these things, but I have different journals. So, like, I have a journal professionally, spiritually, for when I need to write. I have all these different journals in my home. And I have these journals because it gives me a way to really pull things together and go back to it, as well as hold myself accountable when I want to set goals. So I didn't write the book because it was like, I need to write a book. I just started to write over the last few years several different scenarios that were happening. And some are mine and some were others that I was seeing. And what I saw, Paulette, is that I was trying to really figure out literally why some leaders were moving forward and why some leaders weren't. And I really started to realize it was the way that people use their voice. And this is not about not talking or talking. It's about the way that you show up in spaces. It's the relationships you have or you don't have. It's the understanding of the competencies and the skills that you have or that you utilize at its greatest asset. And so the book really came out about self awareness. So I had to look at my own self awareness. I believe like it's hard to tell people what to do if you're not even practicing what you preach. So I had to do a lot of self-awareness of now you have these scenarios, but literally at the end of the day, where do they stem from? And so I looked at this journey of things that I had to look at about myself. And so I'm being vulnerable in this and saying there were some big things that I had to look at. And there were four things in writing this book. So while I was accumulating these stories, I had to say, who is Teniqua? Because Teniqua can't talk about what these scenarios are unless she actually really recognized what she is at this point. And so my
Right.
very first thing I had to do is, the only person you can lead is yourself. So a lot of times people think I'm a leader because of a title, but if you are walking ahead and no one is following you, you just walking. That is all that you are doing. So my first big thing is I had to remove my cape. I had on a cape. I call it the save a hoe cape. A lot of us do it. We think we can save the family, we can do this, but Jesus saves. That is not our job. And so, how do I recognize if I am going to share these insights? How am I thinking about that? The second thing is humility. When you are in this space and you start to get people who want to listen to you, you have to look at your ego because it want to come out. It want to be like, yeah, girl, there is not a place for that. And so for me, it's like always recognizing that what I am doing is because it is the assignment of my faith and the person, or I would say the higher spirit. And so for me, that's what I had to think about. The third thing was discernment. You have to have more discernment about the people who are around you, how they're showing up. And so you can't talk about a story of leadership and not really recognize how people are showing up towards you. Some people have damaging in relationships and their energy that doesn't help you, but that was instrumental. And then last, I had to become unbothered. How do you become unbothered? And that has been my practice in the last 2 years. I literally have a daily reminder because I was seeing it, it sparks literally, Paulette. Do not be distracted because literally for me, the devil is doing his job at his greatest potential. So when you are becoming unbothered, you see people much more clearer. Certain things that you respond to, you don't need to. And a lot of times you realize, is that really important? Or is that a person taking you on a journey? And that everything is not for you to change. And so that's really the journey of the book before you really even get into these chapters about why I wrote the book. When you write a book, it may be for others, but it truly was recognizing who I am as a woman, as a Black woman, as a leader, as someone who is leading others, and really saying, what is it that you need to understand about yourself? Because if you don't understand yourself clearly, how can you truly clearly lead others?
Listen, I can tell y'all now, we're going to have a book study because it's time. We're going to go a little bit further this year. This is a book study. I feel like we've had church, benediction, but because there's nothing like those ouch moments, and you need those. And you talked about a lot of high frequency things that sometimes we don't realize we have the capacity to do because we deal so much with surface level thinking.
Yep.
But this is on a different level. So I'm telling y'all now, we're going to study the book because this is on a whole nother level. So get ready. When I drop the link to in the Stiletto Talks blog and on our pages, I don't want to hear nothing because we going in. The book study is coming. And the reason why is because she said some things that we talk about all the time. Discernment. Everybody is not your assignment. They're not. She talked about taking off capes. Now, you all know that we've had many a person stretched out at our events because they're just overwhelmed, because they're trying to save everybody. They've been sick, they've been in the hospital, including me. So we're coming to you from a place of this is real things going on. This is real life. This is not a case of, this is informational text, if you will. So Teniqua didn't write a fictitious story. She's sharing truth. And so sometimes when we hear truth, because truth takes its time to bring us to a certain awareness. A lie is quick, but truth takes time to understand, time to process, and time again to be convicted. So she has brought up some great terms. So you all can get ready, get ready, get ready. We are going into the book because everything she's saying is exactly what is needed in this moment to transform. A lot of us are thinking about how we can transform ourselves. And you know, you all call me a lot. Paula, how can we do this? Paula, how can we do that? Well, we have someone who has written the story. And giving us realistic advice, especially someone who is on Teniqua's level in the community and willing to give back and to share. So before we go any further, we want to say thank you, because often what we see is that people do not reach back. They like, girl, you're going to have to get it on your own. I'm going to see y'all. I hope I see y'all up the road. But you didn't, instead of, you took off the cape, but you still reached back and reached your hand out. And so for that, we thank you. You feel like you can't hold on to a cape as strong as you can hold on to my hand. So we thank you for that.
Thank you for saying that, because I think I struggle with that in my prayers around, like, I don't understand, why I feel the need to have to do this and think I have to problem solve this. And what I realized is that I needed to transition how I was showing up. And that transition was, it's not your job to save that, but you have to know where and when you give your gifts. And I think that when I started to realize that is good, and people will find an exit when you start putting up boundaries in a way that you haven't thought about it. So one of the biggest things I think as you go into this year is, what boundaries do you have up? People think when you have boundaries, somehow it's got to be nasty and mean. But in the work that even when I deliver workshops, I'm super clear around like where I start, I stop, how I love, I won't. And you just have to put that down. And even with my friends and changing some of my boundaries, it was difficult at first for them. But I was like, if they're truly my friends, I'll give them time to adjust. And they did. So I love that. I know you have another question for me, but I want to say this because there's something I think is important. When you talked about setting goals and you don't accomplish them in 2 weeks, and this is one of the big things I think um, is a huge part of when I'm working with leaders. So the first thing that I started to realize is, we don't start our goals where we are. We start them where we want to be. So we dreaming already. I always say this: you want to get your BMW and you don't have no car. How about we start with first just getting a car? I'm not saying that you can't get your dream car, but what we do is we go from 0 to 100 and then say, Paulette, I didn't get it. I did the steps. And what I'm saying is that you got to be 3 before you 4, before you 5, before you 6. So what I realize is that the anomalies that you see where people jump steps, those are anomalies. Those are rare. But for us, you have to then set goals and you work them. So what I do is, not at the beginning of the year, there's no resolution. What I do is I start with words. I start with a word that's going to take me through the year. So whether it's achieve, whether it's being humble, whether it is tenacious, whatever it is, that word is the way that I will show up in the way that I actually work, play, and interact with people. And then I set ways of understanding how that can show up, instead of, I'm going to lose all this weight in 6 months. I'm going to do, like, no, everybody go to the gym the first month and then they stop by the second month. So how do you set things that become a new habit? And so what I would say to you is that what you put in, and even any business, because Paula says she is a dualist in many things. What you put into your business, what you put into your work, what you put into whatever you do is what you get out. And every year, I'm about to go into respite and recovery these next 2 weeks. I will evaluate what I put into my business. And I always realize, you put in 80%, that's why you got what you got back. But the more you put into it, and being realistic and understanding that, is what you get out. So at the end of the day, I say, like, set goals from where you are, which is why self-awareness. They say 90% of people say they self-aware, but truly only 10 to 15% of people are truly self-aware.
Exactly.
Truly self-aware. So you have to set the goal by being honest. And I can say this, I don't know you, Paulette, but I know when I started not only this book and the things that I shared with you and how I journey, I had to see the ugly parts of me. I had to see those parts because you cannot move forward. That's not so kind. That's not actually good. So I can't change and progress forward. So I think in goal setting, we have to be really honest, not with anybody else, but just with ourselves. And then I set markers for myself because you should be looking at how you're achieving them. If it's not weekly, monthly, I'm always looking in my journal at what I set. And what I find is the more you are committed to a habit that you stick with, it becomes a part of your daily routine. And the daily routine is the change for that success.
Listen, I was glad for the interruption. I'm taking notes myself. I was glad for the interruption. And the reason why I say that is that often, again, we don't get to glean, especially when you're in leadership. You're always giving, giving, giving. You pour, 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 pour. You set events, create events. You're moving around. You putting everybody together. You're bringing everybody in the same room. And often you're too exhausted to glean. You're just trying to make sure everybody was happy and everything went well, and that all the feedback came back positive, and all is well, so that we can leverage for other additional opportunities. But we're not thinking about sometimes is we're tired and we didn't learn nothing ourselves because we were so busy moving around. But like you said, this time of year, especially for myself, I can't speak for anybody else. I'm really deep into introspection. I need to see like what is going on because I've had so much personal change and professional change. And I just know that if you don't do that, you will fall for anything. Anything that you see on social media, anything that is trending, you will go down a rabbit hole of something that you cannot necessarily come out of. And my grandmother used to always say that God can't bless who you want to be. You know, 'cause he wants to bless the real you.
Well,
So you got to know who is the real you, because that could be anybody. You know, you trying to. I can't be Teniqua, and Teniqua's not trying to be Paula. We're talking about who we are, us, like who we are as a person. We're flawed. We're tired right now. We're tired. We've been giving all year. We're tired now, and now it's coming to the top of the year when you all hear this. So by now, when you all hear this, now we've done this introspection. Now we got all these plans all year, right? And we're trying to see how can we leverage these things and get it done. So thank you for the gleaning moment, because I have a nice note. I'm for real. My notes are straight. I just want to be clear. I have notes.
Paula, I was like, we could go all night. All I can say to you that what you said is the biggest lesson I learned. You can't give from an empty cup. We always giving, and as women, we are natural to being the ones that step up in the household and do different things. And what I realize is, Taniqua, you can't give from a cup. You have to give from your cup runneth over. And that's for everything that you do. And I will say this, I have found my greatest blessing when I operate like that. When not that you're not going to have tired days and weeks, but I am giving from the best parts of me that are not from my cup, but from my cup that have runneth over.
I love that. And we are also talking about the challenges. And so one of my questions that I have, and that is often a common question, especially when people are doing that transformative change, is what are some common challenges that you see individuals face when trying to implement professional development practices? Again, they've taken 20 classes, and now it's we're gonna see if we can try to piece everything together or take one thing from the class and see if we can put some things in motion. And how can you overcome that? Because basically you're getting a barrier because you're comfortable in what you are, but now you're trying to become something else, or grow to something else, a new level, hit that milestone, and you're hitting those barriers. So how do you overcome those challenges, or what are some of the best practices?
So I think it's first this understanding, and this is what I've been learning. I had to learn about myself, but what I'm also seeing, first of all, I think with leaders. So when you think about the professional development experience, first of all, let's just start with societally. When we work at jobs, we are set to make all of these decisions really quick, sometimes fast, problem solve, with no real space for introspection or reflection. When we create those spaces, then people are like, we don't have time for all that. We don't have time, but we actually, not the recap of how the event went, but actually thinking about our leadership around the things that we lead. So we don't normally create space. So what happens is we go to these professional development workshops, seminars, whatnot, and we just put more information in our brain. And most of the time when we leave, it's good stuff. We hype, we like, yeah. But then we are also overwhelmed with the information. And then the next day or the next week, we go right back to that same routine. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where we lose a lot of time being able to reflect on what we learned and to implement. And so one of the things that I've really been good at trying to practice is having a journal or a notebook around that specific experience, because I learn from people all day. I always say, as a leader, I am a student of what I do. So with that, I'm always learning from others, writing things down, and then I make a point to go back through it, and I have to go back through it and take some time to think about it. And then, because when you think about how the transfer of learning happens and how you make things applicable, you have to go back to it. So that's the way that I kind of think about why there are challenges, is because we get tons of information, flyers and stuff, cards, people, and then we never really have the chance to digest it. And so what we have to do is put it in a place, and I like to say chunks, and then I'm going back to it. I'm also highlighting in my journal what it could apply to, so that when I go back to it, oh, this is something I could use for my ally program. Oh, this is something I can use for my microaggressions workshop. And so I'm also semi labeling things as to why I'm writing it down, as a means to go back. And then I'm always going back through those journals, realizing that it may take me 6 months. It may take me a few weeks to even process as well. But I don't think we can go to these professional development workshops and just think everything we remotely take in, we immediately apply. But the goal is, what is your intention for going? And then what is your actual plan for doing, I like to say, in smaller chunks, so that it becomes cumulative versus I'm going to change the whole universe because I just did this 2 day or 5 day or 6 week program.
Well, see, it's not just me saying it, and you heard it clear from the professional. 20 years experience, folks. This is not something, this is learned. This is acquired information. And I love what you said about breaking up in chunks, especially for those of us who feel like we are multi-talented, we're dualpreneurs, we're all over the place. We work for somebody, we work for ourselves. You have a lot of stuff going on. And I like what you talked about chunks, so you can compartmentalize, like, hey, this goes over here, this goes over there, and really keeping us organized.
And why
Um,
you wrote it down? Because I
mhm,
think what we forget is, like, you wrote a note down, but was I writing it down for something I want to say at a staff meeting or something I want to put in my work? So that's what I started to do, is label and or put like sticky notes.
mhm,
But ultimately, I think what people are realizing is they want the information, but then they have all this good information, and then there's really no way to think about how you can apply the application. And the only person that can do that is you, but then you have to stop and slow down and figure out how you can chunk it out in different things. I think we all desire to want to just consume it, and even if your employer is paying for you to go, it's like, well, what are you going to do? But I think you have to be intentional and
mhm.
strategic around what information you can actually process and or share and teach, and then be really clear around how it moves through whatever period of time before you either go back and or you continue to engage. Otherwise, some people just like being in a space where they get, I like to say, filled up a lot, and then
Mhm.
go back to do nothing. So if you just listening to Paulette's podcast to feel good, and then you wait how many ever more days before the next one, you got to take a look at yourself and ask yourself why, because then you're not applying what you're learning. And that is about you and your own talents. And then the last thing I have to say is we all have many talents. We
Mhm.
all have a light. This whole thing about I have a light, you don't have a light, there is abundance for all of us. But what you're not
Yes.
going to do is get in the way of my gift. It doesn't matter what faith you believe in. We all have gifts. So one day it may be Paulette's day and we shining and we gonna clap her up. And my day may not come for a month or two. But the reality is that all of us have many talents
Yes.
the same. How do you figure out what they are, live in them, and move them forward with purpose?
Listen, I love this. I want everybody to know. So your book is now on Amazon. So that means, is it in ebook and in print, or is it in print, or tell us about the different ways in which we can acquire the book?
It's actually on Amazon and Inagram as well. So a lot of bookstores get it off of Inagram, but it is in a Kindle version as well as a book version. And so My Leader Myself is literally about self-awareness and harnessing your superpower. So I have said my superpower, which I believe is everyone's, is your voice. It's how you use it. It's when you use it. It's when you understand when you use it. And I have found in recognizing from relationships to leverage to power brokering to literally how not only I show up, but watching others, that your voice can make or break things, but also when and how you use it is important. And so people think just because you didn't say anything that you were complicit. But this book is truly about you recognizing that there are moments when you speak and you use that with authority, and there are other moments where that's not the hill to die on. But some of us want to die on every single hill and say
Ooh.
nobody hears me. And the reality is that when people aren't listening to you, you have to check yourself as to how I got there. Because a lot of times there isn't an awareness of why your voice isn't making the presence you want. And if all you do is self reflect on what you need other people to do, then they also have closed their ears to you. So, my book is literally stories and understandings of how your voice isn't always what you say. It also is the way you use your body, your language, like in how you show up. My voice can be present without me physically being there because other people are talking about what Teniqua is saying or what she has shared. So, how do you make who you are a powerful presence? And that's what the book is about. So, my hope is that I could share with you what I learned because there were things that I learned about not only myself in writing the book, but also what I learned about myself being in spaces and why I was the one who was asked to be there. I say a lot to people because I'm in a space with less people who are look like me has nothing to do with I'm the conformist because I'm super clear about what I have to say and how I
Yes,
need
you
to
are.
say it. But where I say it to them and when I say it is all about that. So that doesn't mean that I'm in a space and I'm like, oh yeah, Kiki. I'm also like, maybe that's not a conversation I need to bring up to the whole group of 50 people, but I'm happy to have a side conversation. That doesn't make me less of anything as much as I'm trying to get you to hear what you want in a larger group for change. And that's what the book is about. The book is truly understanding how you harness your own voice and your own power. And if you keep feeling like it ain't you, are you willing to let somebody else be that voice without you letting your ego get in the way?
Ooh, see now she's starting something now. She's starting out the year with want to be starting something. She Michael Jackson this year. She's starting something. But look, I listen. She has come. Taniqua has come on with the tea. So I'm telling y'all now, this is going to be a book study for us because I feel like this is a book that can unify us and teach us to not be at one another, but how can you truly help one another? Because transformation starts from within. So that means you're not in competition. And you know that Stiletto Talks focuses on safe spaces and safe places. So this is a chance for us to safely discuss how we need to change, because it starts with self. Because when you're working on yourself, people notice. They'll tell you like, "Oh, you done lost weight. Oh, you look different." You know, they notice that you just been doing your own thing. So how can we truly transform? Because when we transform, once you've done the work, you're not going to let nobody take that away from you. Because it's different than somebody just gave it to you. Once
Well, first of all,
transforming means you're going through something, so you know you're going to hold it.
well, Paulette, you already know when you find your sense of peace, you will not let anybody get it. But
Oh
here's
no.
what I'm going to say. One of my greatest quotes that I love that continues to carry me, and it comes from Ava Duvall, and it's that when you are in your own lane, there is no
Mm.
traffic. We always looking at somebody else's lane. Run your own race. Sometimes people like, you not compete with me because I don't even see you, because you trying to pay attention to what I'm doing. You have to work on what's in your heart. If you have hatred for yourself, you are inflicting that on other people, and they see it and they feel it. And that is about you. And so I've had to learn that certain behaviors are not about how I'm treating someone horrible, because I really work to not show up like that. It is about that person not loving themselves enough and feeling some kind of way about what you're doing. That's not yours. That is not for you. It is for me. God gave that for me. And what is for you is for you. You have to operate for modeling togetherness in an abundance mindset. If you feel like opening a door for Paulette is going to take something from you, then that's a problem. Because I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
open a door for Paulette. And if somebody say they don't want to do this or I can't get this anymore, it wasn't for me. I don't spend time worrying about what was taken. But what I do is I try to understand what's for me is for me. And I got to move down that path. So if you run in your race, there is no traffic because it's going to be wide open and the opportunities are for you. But what we have to do is stop thinking that if I share, if I operate in abundance, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about energy. I'm talking about how we show up for each other. Has to come from care, joy, love. And if you're not thinking about that, but if you want to talk crazy to people and you want to treat them, I'm going to tell you real quick, I'll cut you off. That's just not what I do. That's not how I show up. So this is truly about recognizing one, who you are, where your heart is, but run your own race because your own race is the only race that matters at the end of the day.
Look, I had to mess my microphone up fooling with Teniqua because I'm over here about to have the Holy Ghost over here. All the camera went off. Listen, listen. This is so true. And again, we thank you for gleaning, for showing up. There are times, like you said, when you have to, there's a way to show up. It's etiquette. It's really professional etiquette. And you can still be you and be clear and get the business clear without about to take somebody's head off. And then when we're having conversations, when there's a side conversation, and we all know what that side conversation is, especially in today's time, we have to think about being strategic. And so her book is helping us to identify strategies. So whatever space you're in, you can check yourself. So we don't have to pull you off to the side, whisper in your ear, give you no code word, give you no code sign. This is time for you to be reflective, work on yourself. And then when you show up in spaces, I promise you, if you're doing the works, the right people will see you. You don't need but one yes. Tyler Perry said it best. You don't need but one yes. So this, and I'm just going to tell you, and I'm going to be honest with you because you are on here today. You have been on my vision board for 2 years.
What?
And so, as crazy as that sounds, you have been on my vision board for 2 years. You've shown up at some of the events with NCBW and other events. We've honored you in spaces, and a lot of times we're moving around so much and working an event that we're not able to talk, right? Because obviously I'm there in another capacity, and then you're there in another capacity. But to have a conversation with you has been on my list for the last 2 years. And so I'm saying all that to say to everyone that is listening, just keep showing up, keep doing what you're doing and being consistent. Her PR contacted me about being on our show because they were looking to put this book on platforms that are consistent. So you don't just go on everywhere and talking about, oh, I have a book, or oh, I've come out with something, because again, now look, now we do want to make money now, folks. And we want to get that awareness out there and that visibility, because ultimately that credibility lends way to and leverages for all of the things that who we are and what we do. Okay. And so when I got the email, I had to look at it. I actually screenshot the email because I was like, wait, who contacted me? And I'm being dead serious, because what she does here in Arizona and how she shows up in spaces, and no matter where she's in that space, we know who she's showing up for. We're cheering too, big and loud, right? Because you don't have an organization with State of Black Arizona. We all know who who you're going to be talking about, but the space may be looking totally opposite, and she may be the only one in the room talking about the State of Black Arizona. So that's huge, and to be wanted to be there. So we have to think about, how are we transforming ourselves and really doing the work that if you're consistent, if you will attract the things that you want. This interview was something that I want. A conversation is what I wanted. But I got blessed with an interview. I got blessed with having a deeper conversation. My prayer request was a conversation. But this is bigger, because it's bigger. My mission is like Teniqua's, it's bigger than the both of us. So in us having technically a conversation, because we are blessing so many others. And just be consistent, everybody. I'm telling you, get the book. I'm getting the book. I'm a constant student. So I don't just stand up and run my mouth all day and tell jokes low key. Because I low key could have been a comedian. However come, right? This is about making sure we're okay. We're convicted and on a mission to make sure we're okay. And then when we show up in spaces, we got something to say. It's something to be heard, and it's something to build and sustain. So we may do it differently, but we are in the same spaces. And I admire her for being on the level that she's on, because it is hard to get in these spaces, folks. You don't get there in 2 weeks. Now, I told you about that 2 weeks. You don't get there in 2 weeks. It takes time. And so for me, this is a vision board moment for me. And I'm sharing with you all this in all transparency. Just continue to do the work. This is a continue to do the work moment. So I've waited. I didn't tell her this when we first got on, but I've waited 2 years to have a conversation with her. And you all get to hear it. So thank you for showing up. Thank you for seeing us. We appreciate you. Thank you for saying the hard things. Thank you for sharing the real data, the real facts. Thank you for the professional development, for making sure that our slip isn't hanging and our crown isn't crooked. Because when you're in leadership, people don't say thank you. They just take, and then it take you about 2 months to just shake back. So we see you and we thank you. We appreciate you. We getting this book, and I'm telling you now, it's going to be our book study. Now, I may have to lean on you to come online virtually again to do a book study, because we want to hear from you and get everybody's feedback about what we thought about the book. But I know this, we are definitely bookworms, and we certainly want to be able to support you, to lift you up. And my words to you are, Teniqua, keep doing what you're doing. You are changing so many lives more than you know by your walk, not just by your organizations, but by your walk. You, the person, not just your organizations, but you are changing the culture. You're changing the visibility, and you are proving that it's more than just two Black people out here in Arizona, folks, because y'all swear it's just two of us, but it's more, it's a lot of us out here, and our voices are valid. Your dreams are valid. And so thank you. This is my early Christmas gift. My birthday, when you all will see this in January, but my birthday is coming up this Saturday on December 21st. So we're recording through the week. And so this is my 50 something ish. And so with this is just a great birthday present for me to be able to have this conversation with you. Guys, if you haven't heard of the book, we've been talking so much and having so much sister time, but the book is My Leader, Myself. Is available on Amazon. We're going to make sure we put the link in the comments on YouTube. We're also going to make sure that the title of the book is in the introduction on all of our podcasts, on all the platforms, and also on the stilettotalks.com. We love you. We appreciate you. And thank you for just being who you are in this space. I know the work is hard. I know you get tired because advocacy, it is what it is. And it is. And you're doing big things and you're making big change with by operating in your purpose and in your convictions. And so to that, we say thank you. Many of us, or our light shine a little bit brighter. Every time you shine, we be cheering you on. So we hope that you can feel that light illuminating from behind you. Because we're right there. We're right there cheering for you. Again, everyone, if you're not familiar with Teniqua Broughton, I highly suggest you follow her, follow Verve Simone, follow the State of Black Arizona and every platform that she has, because the work is phenomenal. And what she's doing in a space where she's often the only one in the room. Maybe I'm gonna give it two in a possible. It is huge and has a diverse team too, because it's something different when you don't just have Naquana or Shaquana, but you have Adam too. Okay, right. So that's a different thing. A diverse staff. So that's a diverse team. And also congrats to your new cohorts. We know that you just had a new set of graduates. Again, all of these things are just so awesome. But definitely, truly a transformative leader, truly making change. My leader, myself. Now we gonna cut y'all off and we gonna have us some girl time. But thank you so much, Teniqua. We really appreciate who you are in this space.
First, thank you, Paulette. Thank you to everyone who is listening and everyone who is affected by the words that I share. It is come from inside of me to you, and please do that for others. So I am by far just honored to be the vessel tonight. Thank you.
Well, we love you much. Check us out on all the platforms. The Stiletto Talks podcast. Thank you so much again. I'm Paula Hutchinson. I'm the CEO and founder of the Stiletto Talks, and we hope that you take the time to listen to this over and over again as you start your new year off.